Joining me now to discuss this case is George Brauchler, Colorado District Attorney, who knows this case extremely well. Very experienced attorney out here in Colorado. You were the former district attorney for all of Arapahoe County, am I right?
I was. In fact, I hired 2 of the 3 prosecutors that tried this case just within the last few months, yeah.
Now, this is the point where generally I am supposed to say, wow, what a great job you guys did. And they did. I'm not taking it away. But that said, I got to tell you, a good attorney on this case probably could have tried this one in his or her sleep because, God, was this guy guilty? Am I wrong? I mean, it was a mountain of evidence.
This had as much overwhelmingly guilty evidence as I've seen in a case, but the thing that you couldn't count on was how much evidence was developed by this guy after he got arrested with the overwhelming evidence, including soliciting his daughter to manufacture evidence to get him off the hook and to solicit another fellow inmate to murder the lead detective.
Yeah, he was utterly incorrigible. So let's go back to the beginning and go through this thing from the start, because we'll get to what he does after he's arrested. Essentially, he's married well over 20 years. They have 6 kids, apparently from the outside, happy family. The wife works in the office, in the dental office. It appears to all intents and purposes, it looks like it's a successful ongoing venture, but it's actually not. Turns out he's mismanaging it. He's worried about his partner, business partner, finding out that he's blowing the case. What does he start to do now relative to his wife in order to try to clean up all of these loose ends?
Well, remember, for years during this 23-year marriage, this guy is a dumpster fire of a husband, and that he is a philanderer, a serial philanderer. She continues to forgive him. He works himself to a place where he finally meets a woman at a Las Vegas conference in the weeks leading up to this. And I think between that and the financial stresses, he makes the decision that, look, I don't want to be married anymore, but I can't suffer the financial and reputation blows of a divorce. I know how to get out of marriage. I make my wife go away.
Yeah, and that appears to be what happened here. He's worried about the discovery issues and things that could come up in a divorce proceeding. All of a sudden they see, wow, the money he's claiming is here. It's not here. Where did it go? He's damaging the business. And so now he decides he's going to go all kinds of Agatha Christie here. And I don't mean to make light of it, but you know, you don't see too many poisonings. And this was sort of an old-style caper where he decides, I'm going to start with arsenic, right? And he orders arsenic. The problem is he orders it to his business. Am I wrong?
No, he does order it to his business. He does a lot of online searching on a little used computer in an office that doesn't belong to him. It's really a surgery room that no one ever does online research for.
Good point.
And you might be getting to this point, but listen, we only discover this by chance. There happens to be an employee who opens a box they were told to never open.
Right.
And they saw the poison inside, and that starts this cascading effect of facts, and this guy can't lie his way out of it.
It's so horrific, and it's so malevolent, you know, because they're married all of these years. Even if you're not getting along, you share 6 kids. And talk about intent. He's ordering arsenic, and yet, the arsenic isn't doing the job. He's poisoning her protein shakes. The poor woman, she's going to the gym. She's trying to stay in shape. She's taking these protein drinks. He's dosing her with arsenic. It's making her sick as a dog. But they don't pick it up when she goes to the hospital, correct?
That's right, but they're not looking for that.
They're not looking for it.
This guy holds the keys to all the tests and information that might save her life. And I think that ultimately undercuts the defense at trial, which is she was suicidal and he was sort of engaged in this unwitting attempt to try to scare her out of it by playing chicken by getting it. He never once tells law enforcement, he never once tells the doctors, this is what's going on in her body. I know because I helped put it there.
I mean, really, really something. So she's sicker, she's sicker, she's sicker. She's in the hospital. She's not getting better. She comes out. They don't know what's wrong with it. But as you said, arsenic's one of those things, and that's why people use it to poison, unfortunately. If you don't know to look for it and test for it, you're not going to find it. So they don't know what's wrong with her. And then you get those text messages between them, which just, once again, we've talked about it on the air. I've talked about it ad infinitum, that the digital evidence these days is such a, I actually say to myself, how do we make cases back in the day without all of this digital stuff? But they had all of these texts where he literally is saying to her at one point, he seems to allude to the fact that he did it before, that maybe he tried it previously, and she seems to acknowledge that. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, at one point he says, listen, given our past, it might be triggering for you to hear, but I did not drug you this time. And that's because in the past, he had drugged her and then later claimed, well, I had been suicidal and I didn't want you to try to stop me, so I had to drug you, which is a ridiculous comment to make, but it sets him on a path towards, and those texts, you're right. The texts highlight the duplicity of this guy, the betrayal of this guy. This guy, for my money, I've only been doing this 30 years. This is one of the coldest, most calculatingly evil individuals I've ever seen, because at the time he's telling her, I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with you, let me help you. He's continuing to poison her and sleeping with other women and seducing them while she's in the hospital.
Yeah, and he's giving them all a song and dance about my marriage is over. I think one of them he tells I was never married. But let's go to the main one that testifies against him. It's another dentist. He meets her at a convention. Now, we want to be clear. There's no implication that she had anything to do with this murder. In fact, she flips against him and she testifies against him. But nonetheless, they were carrying on an affair, and that ends up being crucial evidence from where I sit because it makes him look duplicitous. You know, as a prosecutor, once you've lied about the time of day in the eyes of a jury, you're a liar. So he was sunk. I think as soon as she gets up there, starts corroborating what kind of guy he is, and all of this other stuff, the jury can't wait to convict this guy. So let me ask you this. Was there any talk of a plea deal? Because if you're sitting where most of us are, you say, why'd you go to trial, guy? And my answer when I would get that question would be, because they had him so cold that they might not have offered him a deal. What did you hear?
No. There would be no offer in this case.
Right.
The opportunity for that might have been if Colorado still had the death penalty that went away during the pandemic, because this is a torture death, and it was torture.
Yeah.
The prosecution might have had the ability to have a conversation, hey, if you own up to what you did, we'll take the needle out of your arm.
Right.
But because that wasn't even on the table, the only option was either life in prison forever and ever, or you go to trial, and he chose go to trial. And for a narcissist like this, that doesn't shock me at all.
Narcissist is the word. You see it. And, you know, you just articulated the argument I've always made relative to the death penalty. I got my problems with state-sponsored death. I got, you know, it's just one of those things I'm ambivalent about. But the usefulness of it as a bargaining chip in a case like this, you save the county a fortune because you say, guy, we're going to put you on death row, and even if we never get there, if you die of natural causes on death row, that's hovering over you for the rest of your life. Otherwise, take the deal and die in jail, much like they did with Koberger. So I think that what you just said is such a salient point here, but let's go to what you brought up at the beginning. Even after he's arrested, he's in jail, he's looking at a mountain of evidence, he doesn't give up, does he? What does he do from prison?
No, he does a couple things. He solicits some former cellmates of his, one, to kill the lead investigator.
Yeah, that
in
always
the case.
works. Yeah.
Nothing says I'm innocent like let me kill the person leading the investigation. And then, and this is the part that's so despicable, especially if you're a parent, he reaches out to his eldest daughter and asks her. Involves her, asks her to go out, meet with another former cellmate, and manufacture evidence that will make it look like the mother that he murdered was actually suicidal.
Utterly narcissistic. His defense was laughable. You talked about a lot of it. He tried to claim his Google searches, again, digital evidence that sinks him, where it was him looking because he was depressed. Nobody buys it. He's going to do life. He's not getting out, and it's exactly where he belongs. I have to say, this is a guy as cold-blooded as it gets. Am I wrong? I mean,
no, this is as cold and calculating a guy, and you hit upon it early on. It's one thing if you poisoned a total stranger and they were dead like this. This guy drew out this long and painful emotional and physical death of a woman he was married to and made babies with, six of
kids.
them over 23 years.
Yeah.
It takes a special kind of darkened heart to be able to do that, but he did it.
And he just looks like an everyday. He's a dentist, for God's sake. You know, he couldn't look more sort of vanilla, right? Completely anodyne, and yet you get this thing. Last question, then we got to go. Who gave him up when he was trying to do the murder for hires? How'd they twig to that?
Well, listen, when you have two inmates that have the ability to come forward and they start looking at all the evidence, you get guys that are in a position to want to do good. Normally, you would say, look, you can't trust jailhouse snitches too much because they have a motive. The problem is when you're anchored with a daughter who gives up the same information and involves one of the inmates, all of a sudden these two guys that you might say, I don't believe you, now you're like, holy smokes, these guys are telling the truth. This is all part of that same scheme.
Yeah, and he had to find that out the hard way that, you know what, if you're going to climb in bed with these guys in prison, don't expect, excuse me, a lot of upstanding behavior, and ultimately they're going to do what they want to do for their own purposes. The whole thing gets given up, and he gets all these extra charges. George, we got to go. We appreciate
Thank you.
being here, and thank you for your
Thanks for having me.
expertise.